If you had told me in April 2021 in draft season that out of Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, that out of those five quarterbacks, that Mac Jones was playing by far the best, I probably would say he probably went to the best team out of all of them. And that's what did happen. But he's very good in his own right, and we're going to talk about all this later. Mac Jones' final year at Alabama, he was a very, 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 very good quarterback. He likely would have won the Heisman if Devontae Smith just didn't go absolutely nuts. And during draft season, we knew that Trevor Lawrence was going number one overall. We had a pretty good idea that Zach Wilson was going to go to the Jets. And then the 49ers traded up from number 12 overall to number 3 overall. And people always say during draft year, if someone is your guy, then you got to get your guy. Well, you got to get your guy, but you also can't be reckless about it. Not understanding value and not understanding how the personnel side of things works as much as he should is one of the things that made people wonder mid-season if the 49ers should fire Kyle Shanahan. Luckily, they've turned it around, but still, Garoppolo is not the answer. It's got to be Trey Lance time over there. Then we had more teams in the top 10 who could have taken quarterbacks. We had Atlanta. We also had Detroit, Carolina, Denver. They all decided to pass on quarterbacks. And then number 11, the Bears trade up with the Giants, and they end up getting Justin Fields. So all these guys, we look at their rookie years right now, and we're just like, wow, the team around them sucks. Their coaches suck. They've really, really, really got nothing going for them. Except Mac Jones went number 15 to New England, and I think this was a perfect combination of team and player fit. Coming out of the draft, it was very clear that as prospects, as pure prospects, I'm not talking about right now, that Mac Jones was a step below the big four in a sense. Because, yeah, he was a smart player, but what do you need in a quarterback in today's game? You need that upside, you need that athleticism, and to be honest, he wasn't going to wow you with a throw like Wilson will. He also wasn't going to outrun you like Lance or Fields will. But in this new era of football where we have these uber athletic, talented quarterbacks, we have Lamar Jackson, we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Dak Prescott. Choosing the smart player can be a little bit boring until you realize that time and time again, those mobile, uber athletic quarterbacks were beaten by Tom Brady in the playoffs every year, and they probably still will be beaten by Tom Brady in the playoffs this year. But if there's one guy who understood that better than anyone, it's Bill Belichick. Last year, Cam Newton with New England, he was amazing the first 2 weeks, and then it looked like his arm had just fallen off and he was just completely shot and washed as a player. And one thing I do need to address is people just need to stop with the hindsight. Let's just not act like people were going to light the world on fire if the 49ers had traded up to number 3 and taken Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are an absolute dumpster fire of organizations. Lance's coach, when the 49ers were struggling this year, wouldn't even commit to his development, even though Garoppolo is clearly not the answer. And Justin Fields' head coach will be fired in a month. This shows that having a good coach and, more importantly, a good team around the quarterback is just as important as talent, just as important as their athleticism. And I do need to tip my hat to the New England Patriots, to Bill Belichick, to Josh McDaniels for making it work with Mac Jones. Let's start with the Patriots as a team. They are not asking Mac Jones to be Superman because they do not need Mac Jones to be Superman. New England is second in the league in DVOA this year. They're first in scoring defense with 15.8 points allowed per game. They're fourth in yards against per game. And they're averaging 32.6 pass attempts per game, which is bottom 10 in the NFL. In a 23-point blowout against Tennessee, I believe this past week, Mac Jones had a PFF grade of 51. So according to a tweet from Evan Lazar, essentially, Mac Jones had a bunch of, okay, we expect you to make these completions and negatively graded throws. So he is still developing, and he missed a wide-open throw to Hunter Henry, and Nelson Aguilar literally climbed up a ladder to grab one of his throws that easily could have just been incomplete. But you know what? When you beat, at the time, the number one ranked team in the AFC, the number one seed, by 23 points, and your quarterback has a bad game, that means your team is pretty damn good, and you should feel awesome. And the Patriots went all out this offseason. They spent a lot in free agency. They got Hunter Henry. They got Kendrick Bourne. They got Nelson Aguilar. Judon has been revitalized. That Jonnu contract looks terrible right now, but you can't win them all. 4 out of their 5 big signings have been producing this year, and more importantly, have been good for their young quarterback. So if any of you have seen my Zach Wilson video, which go ahead and check it out if you haven't, I called him the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning. That has aged tremendously. I said that accuracy is not defined in the numbers, it's defined outside the numbers. And this is Mac Jones' next-gen stats chart based on where he's throwing over the field. So this is Mac Jones' next-gen stats chart. And as you can see, short to intermediate outside is their bread and butter. Now, as you can see, the Patriots offense is not very good throwing deep to intermediate middle. They're pretty awful throwing deep left too. But deep right, his passer rating is about 11 points higher than the NFL average. And another stat I thought all of you guys watching this video would appreciate is that Mac Jones currently has the 4th average fastest release time of a quarterback, averaging 2.61 seconds. And looking at Mac Jones' player profiler, the 3 areas where he stands out are his accuracy rating, his play action completion percentage, and his pressure completion percentage. His accuracy rating is 7.9, which is 7th highest in the league, and usually 8 is a good indicator of, okay, you're on the lower end of throwing just absolute pinpoint balls that your receivers can catch. The Patriots also have a decent, not great rushing offense. They have Damian Harris, who's inefficient, and they also have Ramondre Stevenson, who actually looks pretty good whenever he gets the ball. But despite the fact that their rushing game is all right, Mac Jones is first in the NFL in play action completion percentage. He is also number 1 in the league in pressure completion percentage. And his average time to throw isn't really all that crazy, for better or for worse. In an era where the new trend is uber athletic, big arm, mobile quarterback, the Patriots seem to have zigged while others have zagged. Should the 4 teams that drafted quarterbacks ahead of New England have taken Mac Jones instead? No, because there is no doubt in my mind that he is definitely not as good on a different team than he is on the New England Patriots right now. But this isn't to discount him. Coming out of college, we knew that he was the smart quarterback. He wasn't the sexy pick. He wasn't the guy with the monstrous upside like a Lawrence, a Wilson, a Fields, a Lance, like all those guys ahead of him. He is playing by far the best out of everybody in that draft class who was a quarterback. So that pretty much tells us that time and time again, we're going to see all these revolutions in the NFL, and the NFL is always changing. We're probably going to go through more revolutions as we get into the near future of teams trying to copy each other. Because at the end of the day, it's said all the time in like the NFL nerd community that the NFL is a copycat league. But the Patriots got their guy, and he's smarter than Wilson. He's smarter than Fields. He's smarter than Lawrence. He's smarter than Lance. We are going to see if he can really, really, really handle it the next 6 weeks, as the Patriots are, they're probably going to make the playoffs, but as we determine what seed they are, Monday night they play against Buffalo, and that's going to be a banger. All right, that does it for me. See you tomorrow.